Hi friends! So today we are going to be learning how to add fractions with unlike denominators. So we're going to be working on the problem 1/2 plus 2/8. And up until now we've been practicing adding fractions and subtracting fractions with only common denominators. In this case, we can see that the denominators are not the same. And I will also tell you that the sum to this problem is not 3/10. We do not want to just add our numerator and denominator straight across. So in this case, we need to find a way for these denominators to be the same. We can only add or subtract the fractions when the denominators are the same. So we're going to go through that process together. But first, I want you to take a piece of paper, and I would like you to just set up your Foursquare here. You can fold your paper however you'd like to do this, but you want to make sure you've got 4 equal parts, just so you have enough space for each. And you want to put these 4 headings on each of these boxes. If you'd like to just work on the first one, write the problem, that's fine as well. If you would like to just set up your paper, I will leave this up here and you can pause the video so you can get yourself set up. All right, so let's get started. We are going to work on 1/2 plus 2/8. So I'm going to go ahead and write 1/2 plus 2/8 under writing the problem. So I've got my problem written out here. So now let's move over here. It says find the LCD. Well, I wrote down below LCD stands for least common denominator. So remember I said the only way to solve this is when the denominators are the same. So we need to go ahead and figure out how we can get these denominators to be the same. And that's by finding our least common denominator. Our least common denominator is also known as our least common multiple. So what I'm going to do at this time is find my least common multiple of 2 and 8. All right, so remember, finding your multiples is just skip counting. We're going to skip count by 2s and by 8s until we find our least common multiple, the first number, the first multiple that both of these numbers have in common. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 8, 16, 24. All right, so I've got my list here of my multiples, and I can see that the first multiple they both have in common is 8. So 8 is actually my least common multiple, but for this process, it's also my least common denominator. So I went ahead and I circled 8. So 8 is my LCD. All right, let's go down to here where it says find equivalent fractions. So with this process, we're applying a few different skills here. We are applying our knowledge of multiples, finding the least common multiple, and also finding equivalent fractions. This is the reason we spent quite a bit of time on equivalent fractions, is because we need to find an equivalent fraction to 1/2 and 2/8 in order for us to get these denominators to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and stack my fractions. I'll show you what I'm going to do in just a second. I'm just going to write my fractions up and down like this. Okay, now it's an equivalent fraction, so I'm going to put my equal symbol, and I'm going to make my denominator on the other side 8. Well, where did I get 8 from? Let's take a look at what I did. 8 was my LCD. That's my least common denominator. By doing this process, I'm going to now allow both of my fractions to have the same denominator. So now I need to look here. What can I multiply by 2 to get to 8? How many groups of 2 equal 8? Well, I know that 2 times 4 equals 8. And remember, with equivalent fractions, whatever I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. So that means 1 times 4 is also going to equal 4, right? So let me go ahead and write that down for you. I've got 2 times 4, 1 times 4. So let's see what I did. I know that 2 times 4 equals 8, and 1 times 4 equals 4, which means 1/2 equals 4/8. All right, now let's look down here. 2/8 equals how many 8s? Well, this is pretty simple. I know 8 times 1 equals 8, so I need to multiply 2 times 1. So I know 2 times 1 is going to give me 2. All right, so now I've created an equivalent fraction for each of these, and I've got 4/8 and 2/8. So now I'm going to go ahead and just circle these so you see what I'm looking at and what we're working with. Now it's actually time to solve. You're almost done. I'm going to go ahead and add my equivalent fractions. 4/8 plus 2/8, and I'm going to write that in my solve box. Well, I know since my denominators are the same, I leave my denominator 8, and 4 plus 2 equals 6. So that means, let's bring this back to our original problem. My original problem is 1/2 plus 2/8. Well, my sum to this original problem is right here at 6/8 because I've created equivalent fractions here, which means the sum to my original problem is still the same. It's still 6/8. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this up here so you can pause the video at this time if you want to make sure you have all the correct steps. And if you have any questions, you can kind of take a look at my work. Remember, at the end, we just added our equivalent fractions because they had the same denominator. We couldn't add 1/2 plus 2/8 as it was because the denominators were different. Okay, my sum ends up being 6/8. 1/2 plus 2/8 equals 6/8.